Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we've got two very special guests who are bringing a very powerful and compelling message. And you know, when you think about it, abuse, neglect, and adversity are not the end of a story. There's power to alter your course and your life through forgiveness, hope, and love, and it's closer than you think. And today I would like to welcome our special guests to the program, Marcus Weaver and Rick Roberts. Welcome to the program, Marcus and Rick.
Well, thank you, Mike, for having us on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and you guys have been working on a project for quite a while. So this is a new book that you have released, and this is talking about some very powerful subjects like I just mentioned in the intro. So bring us up to speed on your background and what led you to even think about working on a project like this.
Well, I'll let Rick go ahead and start if you want to go ahead, Rick.
Marcus and I met about 6 years ago at a meeting that was set up to have people work together in the community with the idea of banning the question on employment applications that says, are you a felon, or have you ever been accused of a crime? And we felt like that was unfortunately giving people a severe disadvantage if they had a more colorful background, shall we say, to be able to actually get jobs. Typically when they see that, they just automatically throw it away, don't even give people a chance. And that was a successful effort, but we met one night, and then we went out to a coffee shop and talked, and we had this amazingly similar vision of what we thought would be helpful for people. The idea of a live-work facility, whether it was people that were incarcerated or coming off the street or disabled, whatever the situation was, and have them be able to be in the same building or close by to where they live, where they work, and transportation so they can get to all the things they have to get to. And we thought that was a very good model, and we started talking about it, and here we are 6 years later, pretty close to implementing it.
And then, when we met 6 years ago, it was different. I had been working, I always have worked in the nonprofit field, helping people with employment. I was part of the mayor's workforce board, and just different things around my community. And then something happened that really changed my life that I'll talk about later. But what it did was it really made me more passionate about this project that we've been talking about. And instead of talking about it, me and Rick decided, let's make it a reality. And so we looked around for funding, and, everybody talks like how they want to help, but no one really, had the same vision as we did. And so we just kept clear to the vision that the Lord was giving us. And we ended up spending about a year, I would say, this past year, just writing a book. And in that process, we also started a nonprofit, Legacy Grace Community Development Corporation, centered around just some of the things that we talked about 6 years ago, where people can get out, whatever situation they're in. They can come stay with us at a low cost so they could save money, but also teach them how about financial literacy, about how to save money, about how to get your credit scores right, and also how to maintain a job and also pay your rent on time. And we were able to also start an art gallery, Miracle Street Gallery, where we showcase national artists, but we also have a place for homeless, disabled, low-income, recent paroled folks to hang up their work where they wouldn't be able to in other places. And so these were some of the things that we dreamed about. But, as we sit today, Mike, these are come next Friday, our book will be released. And, we signed a contract on a building so we can house some men and start our programming. And we're just looking forward and very excited about some of the social and economic businesses we'll be able to start to employ these folks who've been marginalized already to move to self-sufficiency.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You made the comment about so many people were like, yeah, that's a great idea, but then when it comes time to take action and support, then that was a whole different story. But I think that if you would agree with this, sometimes that passion and that movement and that story behind what difference you're making in people's lives, that starts to gain that momentum. So can you speak to kind of what paths and breaking free from the struggles of abuse and adversity, what does that look like, and what can that provide for these group of people that you are focusing on serving?
Well, we always have found, me and Rick, as we've worked with people in the community, Rick had a construction company, and I always knew that if I had a guy who was coming out of, say, addiction or coming out of incarceration or needed a job, I would send him over to Rick, and Rick would kind of work on him, and we would kind of help him and walk it out with him. And so that's kind of our model, is that the reason why we're so successful with helping people with Job Clinic, which is something we have where, if you need a job, you can give us a call and we have leads and just things like that help folks. And so we noticed that, like, people really needed, employment. People really needed affordable housing to move forward. People really needed somebody who's walked in their shoes to move forward. And it would help them identify what they needed to work on and how we can work together to move them to a place where they can operate in their own strength and their own speed. And our element, mine particularly, I don't speak for Rick, but mine was definitely the faith component. I had a father who was abusive growing up, and so it made me an at-risk kid. And it turned out to be an at-risk adult, meaning I would have successes, and then I would find myself, Mike, self-sabotaging. And so as we work with clients and as we see people coming through our doors each day, we notice those things. I also work for other nonprofits or on boards too, and I run into it's the same situation where people's confidence or they need help navigating a situation. And so Legacy Grace Community Development Corporation is completely about that, and we chosen to forgive as the story because there's a lot of things that people that we had to forgive in our lives to even move forward. And I also see that in the people that we work with too. So that's part of it as well, is just as important as the financial literacy piece, just as important as the employment. So walking with people and walking in their shoes is kind of the DNA of our program.
Yeah, that's a huge piece. Rick, what are your thoughts on that approach of focus that Marcus had just brought up? I'm sure you can add some to that as well.
I think a lot of organizations are starting to recognize that there is a huge need to be able to not just give people services, but actually give them a positive relationship, a friendship, mentoring, if you will, excuse me, to have an opportunity to really walk out some of the challenges in their life. And for many people, if you grow up in abuse or you grow up with a lot of craziness or things going on, and it's really hard for you to trust people, it's hard for you to be vulnerable or honest with people, that makes it very difficult for you to succeed in many ways. You tend to be more volatile. You tend to be more easily aggravated. You tend to be probably a little bit more self-focused just because you're trying to survive. And many of the people that we encounter, honestly, are still in that survival mode. If you've been on the streets for a while, or if you just got out of prison after, let's say, several years where you're used to everybody telling you exactly what to do and you don't make any decisions, you don't have any thought about anything. You just try to do what you're told and get along. It can be a huge culture shock for people.
It's just such a huge point that I think both of you are bringing up, something people don't realize that's below the surface. You think, how can I help this person with their, need for dinner tonight? So that's a valid point. But then when you look further and deeper and deeper and deeper, a lot of times it is, the concept of breaking free from struggle. That sounds cliche. We know that sounds, you can break free and how to break the chains of abuse. But what are your thoughts around someone not feeling worthy because bad things happened, but it doesn't define you? It's not something that, that has to keep you chained down to those feelings. What is some of the things that you would teach or counsel someone that's been through that, where they can make a baby step forward and another baby step forward and start to move past that?
Well, our program is really designed off the crawl, walk, run model, meaning you got to crawl before you walk and you have to walk before you run. And so a lot of the folks that we encounter, men and women that come to our doors, they come with some things that need to be addressed before they even can work sometimes. Sometimes there's mental health issues that you have to look at. A lot of them have substance abuse issues that really cloud their financial situations or relationships they've had in the past. So a lot of them actually have to forgive themselves. I know 10 years ago when I had gotten in trouble after graduating radiology school, I had my pick of jobs, but I decided I wanted to get in trouble and hang out with the crowd. And so the crowd got me in trouble, but at the same time, I had time to sit down and really think, really get to know the Lord, my faith, where I want to go, what I could do, what I could be. And as I was around these guys, they all needed the same things: employment. They didn't know how to do a resume. They didn't know how to forgive a father who did something 20 years ago, and neither did I at that point. And so as the theater thing rolled around, it became even more important that I give that up. Because just imagine, for the past 4 years, if I would have held a grudge against him, I would not be where I'm at today. It kind of stops you. And so we kind of relay that to the people that we work with, because a lot of them have mental issues, mental health issues that need to be addressed. A lot of them can work, really want to work, but don't know how to go ahead and navigate a resume or attach one. And so we just try to fill in the gaps, and we encourage. And I think when you encourage somebody, it uplifts them, and the light goes on, and saying, man, I think I can do this. And, and our motto's always been, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And as long as we have that in focus on our side, even if they're not non-denominational, if they even come from another religion or have a different faith, it's still all universal. Everybody needs a hand, but we don't give handouts. We give hands ups. And I think that's what's the difference in the people's lives that we work with. And that's how you can, the light goes on, the aha, as Rick would say.
Yeah, it makes me think of something when you were describing that. It's so much more than just here's help with your resume, here's a meal, here's some clothes, because while those are useful and helpful, it's also here's some support on helping you think and how you should deal with the way you feel about this. And it sounds like you are bringing kind of a holistic, full circle approach to being able to help physical needs, mental needs, spiritual needs, and all of those things. And it's interesting that if you tell someone to do and push them, they feel pushed and they close off. But when you encourage and you recognize good and call out the good in someone, what they're doing, all of a sudden now that lights a fire under them to pull them to want to do better and do the things that you're working with, as opposed to, I'm not going to do what you tell me because you're an authority or you're someone that's telling me what to do. And that kind of harkens back to maybe some of the things they need to break free from. So you really enlighten them when it is, they probably some people have told you, nobody ever has said that to me before. They've always told me how horrible I am, and now you're saying, good job for this, and I noticed you did. And I think that encouragement would be like water to a sponge.
Okay. Rick can speak on that. Yeah, and so, it was really, Rick is kind of really, as we sat and wrote the book, I found out a lot about Rick, and he found a lot about me, and there's so many similarities with the people that we serve. And Rick will tell you, he's at the Milker Street Gallery every day, and just people come there as a refuge. Am I right, Rick?
Yeah, we'll have a variety of people. You get walk-in people to come and shop, and you'll have business people in the area, and you'll have a lot of people that are maybe, on the fringes. It might be homeless people or people with mental health issues. There was a guy in the gallery yesterday who came in and played the ukulele for about a half an hour, and he was actually very good, and he just wanted to feel like he belonged somewhere. And for him, that was a key breakthrough moment, I think, that he was accepted, just as he was at that moment.
And Mike, the joy is when people do, and Rick will tell you this, we see it on the daily where, you give somebody a job, and after they haven't worked in a while, and give them that opportunity. And then once they get that job, then they get into housing, and that's where we can do both of those. But then there's a third part, the financial literacy piece, and then you got a fourth part with the life skills, time management. A lot of guys don't know what to do with their time, so they go back to old methods and things of that nature. And so, it's really an opportunity for men to break free, break and move forward. into self-sufficiency to where you're not dependent on, government entitlements. You're not dependent on others for your financial resources, or, in relationships that are toxic. So, it's a lot of things that we program with the guys, but at the same time, it's really about that person and where they're at and where they want to go. And so, as people who've walked in it and did it, where we've done stuff where we had to be forgiven, and then also people had to forgive, us, for things we've done, we understand that that's a thing that's kind of universal with most of the people that we work with. They have some chip or something that's holding them back, and it just, and you can see it a mile away once you walk through it already. And so it's pretty powerful to see people succeed. And that's really the goal. It's really people helping people. So.
And so each one of you bring your stories and your past into this project, and you've mentioned Legacy Grace Community Development Corporation and Miracle Street Gallery. Let's shift over and talk about your book, Chosen to Forgive. What is the driving force behind that book? What's the theme and the story behind that?
Well, the thing is about Chosen to Forgive was, I had been doing interviews and going around the country, and everywhere I went or did a story, whether it be a Tennessee prison, a guy on death row in Virginia, or a speaking event in a middle school, everybody always asks the question, how could you forgive the shooter? And my response was always, what? I had a father who was so abusive. And so in the book, it chronicles that journey, both mine and Rick's childhood, and then our young adult life and the struggles that we went through there. And also talks about our faith, which is kind of the binding force. Rick's my brother, and we really worked really hard on this, and it was a difficult, trying circumstance because I was still going through the Aurora trial. Rick was going through some things with some deaths in his family, but yet we were still able to come together to put this, thing together. And you're talking about a white guy from, the Missouri area, and you're talking about a brother, who grew up middle class from Virginia Beach, and it's just how we even met, how we even got this thing going, and how we put it together. It's just an amazing piece, but it's really centered around letting things go and letting God take over. But it's not necessarily a faith book, but at the same time, it's a book about two people who were able to take a dark situation and point light to it, and then help others to that same light. And so I feel that's kind of, in a nutshell, what the book's really about. And a lot of people will see themselves in that book. And it's you're going to either be moved to act, or if you're a believer, it'll be maybe I'm not doing enough, or maybe there's something I can do, to help the community around me. And so that's kind of like the really driving force of this book, is we just feel that, we need to be a voice. And if we are, part of the body, then we need to be helping more people. People need to be, we can't rely on, our government always. It can come from average people can do an extraordinary things if you set your mind to it. And it just seems that me and Rick, for some strange reason, the Lord put us together, and we just maximized the talents we had. And you're talking about two guys who just really had the heart to do it, and we just brought people around us who had the same interests, and so we're able to start all these things. So the book's just a culmination.
The steps of a righteous man are ordered, so I think that's the reason for you guys coming together with your stories, your backgrounds, and then now partnering up together on some of these initiatives that are making a major impact. Rick, thoughts on what you brought to the book, as well as what you hope people can take out of the book?
I think we both bring some pretty straight talk, because we don't mince words. We don't apologize for our honesty. We tell the story of what we went through pretty openly, and that may offend some people. That may even possibly damage some people, just because it's very emotional. It's very, some of those deep things. But what we're hoping is that people won't focus on the tragedy, because typically the tragedy, everybody's going to have tragedies at some point. But what they hopefully will understand and take from it is that the scenes of those tragedies don't have to be the end. They can actually be the scene of your greatest victories too. Just like someone who is an alcoholic or lives on the streets and, has that lifestyle and finally gets cleaned up and goes to rehab and decides, I think I'm going to be an alcohol counselor because I know where these people are. I can kind of understand and I can help them. And then all that stuff, all that sorrow, shame, guilt, whatever those things were, behaviors, then it all can become something very redemptive in the end, where they can say, wow, I went through that and it was unfortunate, but it didn't actually define who I was. It helped me become who I was supposed to be. So bad circumstances doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person or that there's something wrong with you. Sometimes those things happen to help you press in and ask more questions and say, okay, if this is happening, then what kind of a person do I have to become, or what kind of a person do I have to be in this situation, or who do I need to surround myself with, because maybe this isn't working and I need to look at the big picture and say, okay, if I don't change some of these things, I'm either going to die or I'm going to, suffer physically or whatever the things are. And I think for most people, they just need somebody to say, it's okay, you can try again. You don't have to stay in that place of condemnation or guilt or sorrow or shame. You don't have to stay there. You can become something else. You can become a deeper, richer, more amazing person having gone through all those things. We have lots of people have lots of opinions about Donald Trump, and he had a very interesting life so far. But if you look at it, it's like, well, maybe all those things were important to prepare him for, becoming the president. And that's probably true with all of our presidents and most of our leaders. They probably had, difficult situations and things they had to really grow up and take ownership of their stuff. Even if it wasn't their fault, you can't just ignore it and try to deal with it with, sex or alcohol or drugs or money or being a workaholic or whatever the thing is. You have to say, okay, this thing happened. Now I need to do something. And if you don't know what to do, that's okay. But there's people that'll help you. And that's what we really
another thing that I wonder if you guys integrate in with your support is you are here now. Here's where you want to be, hope to be, dream of being, and here's a gap. You got to get from here to there, and guess what? It won't happen overnight, and you have to be okay with that. And as much as you want to be different and change and improve, it doesn't happen overnight, and sometimes just that incremental positive step forward, 1% improvements, cumulative, the compound effect, just kind of building and building, that's the best way to do it, because if you start to make some massive change, that could go the other direction just as fast. If you need to lose 20 pounds and you lose 10 pounds in whatever, a week or two or three, it could come back that quick. So these lifestyle changes, these mindset changes, I would think that need to be, slow and methodical.
Absolutely. And, as Rick will tell you too, what's chosen to forgive, it's exactly like that. It is, we had to crawl, and then we had to learn how to walk on our own, and and now we're hitting the ground running. And
then when you were walking, you fell, and you crawled a little bit more, and then you started walking, then you fell again. So it's it's not a easy progression. You ever seen that?
Nope.
I wish I could flash the graphic up, but it's like, here's my definition of success, and it shows this line from here up to this, the top, from left to right, going straight up, and then it's below it is like, here's what really happens, and it's this squiggly line going up, down, and in reality, you end up getting where you want to be, but it's not the way you had planned, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the book is about, that you can, a righteous man falls down, they say 7 times, but, hey, you can get back up. And so that's kind of really the theme of this book. But a lot of people they do have to take those layers off, and we realize that most of them is centered around a hardened heart, or unforgiveness for something that happened a long time ago that you're still carrying. And so we hope this book is a journey for some. And like I said, some people won't like it because it will touch a nerve, inside them. But at the same time, you never know when the seed that we plant may be watered, or that change might happen after they read this book. And so we just hope to be a blessing to people with this book that we worked on. So.
Excellent. Well, what's the best way that people can find out more about the book, pick it up? Where's that the best place for them to learn more?
Well, you can go to Chosen to Forgive. It's www.chosentoforgive.com. We also travel around the country and do speaking engagements, and the number for that would be 720-774-4677. But if you go to www.chosentoforgive.com, it'll have information about the gallery, it'll have information about our housing programs, and any updates that we have with the book and our speaking engagement tours that will be going on. And we just look forward to whatever the Lord wants to do with this project. And I know Rick's excited. So he just has a cold.
We're doing a book release party on January 27th. And after that day, they'll also be available at the Miracle Street Gallery, which is in Denver, actually Lakewood, which is a western suburb of Denver, at 7001 West Colfax Avenue. So if people don't want to pay for the shipping, they can just come in and say hi. And
just pick it up.
And buy some
Excellent. Well, chosentoforgive.com. And Marcus and Rick, thank you for not only your time today in enlightening us about this great book, but it's the message behind it, and even more than that, the heart behind the message. So thank you for sharing that with us, and I wish you great success in the book project and the impact that you're making in people's lives.
All right. Thank you so much for having us on the show, Ms. Saunders.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.